This is TWiT.
Your review, or you call it an unreview, of the HomePod emerged today along with Nilay Patel and Joanna Stern. Joanna likened it to the bottom half of a sesame bagel compared to a everything bagel.
She only knows New York bagels, Leo, so that can be forgiven.
Not Montreal bagels, not the same.
No, see, I have my little friend here.
I think, yeah. Oh, you got it. You've had it for a week when you wrote the review.
Almost a week, yeah.
So one thing I learned from Nilay Patel's article is that Apple has a materials department, a soft materials department that made the wrapper for the HomePod.
The acoustically transparent cloth mesh.
And there's a cloth cord even.
Yeah, I can hold it up. I hope this is more resilient than the lightning cords and the MagSafe cords, because then I'll want it everywhere.
I know, it's really beautiful. It's hardwired though into the back of the HomePod. Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, so you can't just buy it here and then flip it to South African power.
I have no idea what you're talking about, Rene. I think
the rubber
Apple
cord.
standards for cords are wonderful.
Did your hamster get to that? What the heck?
No, just life, atmosphere, air got to it.
It was a hard winter in Boston land, Leo, and Andy had to struggle to survive.
So my, summary of the reviews I've read so far, including yours, Rene, is it sounds really good.
It sounds really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it really does. There's a lot of technology here. And you think that, Apple's not a speaker company, but they've been slowly and quietly accumulating a ton of speaker talent over the last few years. And they've added all their computational talent, the same thing that let them make portrait mode on iPhone, let them do this acoustic modeling in rooms and build out this system. And they said this project has been going on for 6 years. Nilay and myself and some other people got to tour their giant secret sound lab, which was astonishing in its size and the tools and stuff they had there. And they deliberately created it to be able to make a 3D sound stage just from one speaker, and it really punches above its weight. It's pretty cool to listen to.
So was this why you were in Cupertino? Was for this tour? Yeah. So you and Jim Dalrymple has the article and pictures on the loop of it. So tell us about this. This is the anechoic chamber that they use to test, and of course every speaker company has one of these.
So I went in with some other analysts who had done those kind of tours before. And they said it was very similar, although it was on a scale that they'd never seen before. Like there were more rooms, and those rooms were bigger and had more stuff in them. And I think that's what happens when you have Apple's budget.
Yeah, as we'll learn later in the show, Apple is on a scale that no other company is on.
Totally. And so there was one room that. It was a room within a room that was being suspended, and there was a wire mesh floor that you're not allowed to jump on as a trampoline. I learned that very quickly. And it has just cardboard acoustic. Sometimes there was cardboard acoustic tiling, sometimes there was foam acoustic tiling, and they had these huge loop arrays of speakers and microphones so they could beam stuff at the HomePod, pull stuff out of the HomePod, and just little HomePods in the middle of this whole room. And what's really cool is they had the iPhone team, and they have a whole iPhone vibration team whose only job it is to make sure the iPhone doesn't buzz or make low frequency sounds or do other things to disturb you, and to make sure that no matter where you put the headset on your ear, it sort of tries to beamform the sound from the speaker into the position that you're holding it. And they brought it in so that if you were asleep and there was no sound, you wouldn't hear any buzzes or vibrations or anything from HomePod, or you wouldn't hear any sort of noise distortions. And they went from room to room. They had a bunch of Apple employees who were testing it, and they got acoustic models back from them. Then they built a room that was the average of all the different environments that it was in, and they could tweak that to sort of figure out what it was like with ambient noise. And they had a room that was made out of concrete and steel, feet and feet of concrete and steel, that isolated all noise down to -2 decibels. And when they closed that door, it was just the most unnatural sort of feeling in the world. And they're using that to test sort of like noise coming out of the device. It was all super interesting.
Boy, after seeing all that, you'd be hard-pressed to not think this thing sounded better than anything else. But does it really? I mean, seriously, can you put that out of your mind that they did all that and listen to it? Here's one of my concerns. It's very easy, and everybody does this. There's what we haven't seen yet is the graph of frequency response, which we used to see. Stereo Review, every time there's a new system, they would have from 20 hertz to 20K. The frequency response, and you want flat frequency response if you want an accurate speaker. But as JBL learned early on, and many others, Bose. Nobody wants a flat speaker. You want a speaker that's tweaked to sound better, which often means little bumps in the equalizer at certain places. The problem with doing that is that it sounds better on some kinds of music and not on other kinds of music. And that's one problem with a lot of modern day speakers is that they sound great with modern pop music, but you, Andy, put them on your, Donna Demero.
Thing on opera.
And it's not going to sound as good. And that's tricky. Now, I'd be interested. Apple might be smart enough. They're putting enough power in this thing. It's got the brains of an iPhone 6 to know what kind of music's playing and to change even the frequency curve. So does it sound fine across the board? Did you do a curve? Do you know what its curve is?
No, so so I'm the opposite of an audiophile, and I was approaching this like, would an idiot like me actually even notice a difference compared to different speakers? But they did explain as part of the tour that they made sure they did everything in those rooms to make it absolutely scientifically perfect, to be that sort of that neutral speaker.
But you don't really want that, I think.
No, so then they handed it off to the team of fussy audiophiles at Apple and the people who are artistic about sound, and they tuned it for human beings.
Is there a way in the settings to say what the frequency response is?
Not that I've seen, and it is continuously modeling, so it senses for any change in the room, it will sense changes in volume and remodulate everything so that the bass doesn't get deformed if it's too low or the volume is too high. So it's continuously analyzing everything about itself and all the reverberation and echoes and everything to make sure it sounds good. So I don't know specifically that it's adjusting for kind of music, but it is always adjusting for whatever metrics it can pull out of the environment.
Here's, just for eye candy while we talk about it, Justine unboxing her HomePod. And probably she's not conscious of this, but I noted she's not only wearing a Series 3 Apple Watch, but also a slave shackle bracelet. So she's got kind of the both worlds in there somehow. It's bigger than I thought, or maybe she's smaller than I thought. I don't know. It could be either one. Nicely boxed as usual. Beautiful cable. Normaled into the speaker, which is usually not a good idea because if it frays or breaks, you have to bring it to Apple to fix. Or Burke. Burke could fix it if you have a Burke. Round Apple sticker in there. So did you play it on a variety of music, Rene?
Yeah, I asked it to play a bunch of, it starts off when you set it up, it asks you to ask for music right away because you don't have to do any sort of true play tuning, or you put the little speaker in the room and try to find the sweet spot. By the way,
let's look at that, because she's showing the manual, which is a simple trifold like most modern manuals, but the setup is really cool.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So it asks you to ask for a song, and then it tries to pick a song based on its understanding of music that you've liked in the past. And as soon as it starts playing that song, it starts detecting the acoustics in the room, and then it does all its self-tuning. And that takes between like 1, 2, 3, maybe 5 seconds. And it has an accelerometer in it. So anytime you move it, it'll automatically rerun that.
No,
so there's no separate. Cool. Yeah. There's no separate audio run, or there's no like to go through.
Right.
It just does it on its own.
I also note that it pairs instantly, just like the AirPods do. When you open up when you put the phone near it,
yeah,
it just pops up. So you do you? I think you'd have to have an iPhone or iPad, right, to use this?
Yeah, you absolutely do. I have the whole setup. I put it up on iMore on YouTube.com/iMoreVideo. But you have an iPhone or iPad. The little AirPods-like interface comes up, and you just tap your way through it. And there's a few choices to make. And it's smart, too. Like, if you have accessibility turned on in your phone, it'll automatically enable accessibility or touch accommodations or any of the other accessibility features on the HomePod as it's setting it up. If you have Siri set to male American or female British, it'll copy that over for you while it's setting it up.
Let me go to your iMore review, because I want to show your setting up of the HomePod instead of hers.
Well, mine is just the setup, so you don't have to sit through the unboxing. I did a separate one just for the setup.
Yeah, nice.
But it works. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to ask, does when you select your first thing for it to play, is the genre going to influence how it sets up the device? Like this is going to be tuned towards folk acoustic as opposed to ear splitting metal?
No, I don't. I mean, I asked it to play a podcast first because of course I did. But
so it's tuning to. That's probably the wrong thing, right?
No, totally. But then as you play more human music, like proper
so it
stuff,
continues to adjust.
Yeah, if it needs to, and as it moves around or as the room changes, like if it's in the corner of a bookcase, it knows that compared to if it's on against a wall, compared to if it's in the middle of the room, it senses all those differences in this environment. And if it's in the middle of a room, for example, it'll use those 7 tweeters to send sound 360 degrees around. It's hard to think of it in terms of like stereo or 5.1. It definitely takes the mix into account. It always wants to represent what the artist wanted to do with the song, but then it takes that information and uses that to place sound in the room as best it can. And if it's against a wall, it'll bounce stuff off the wall to get the same sort of effect, to do the center versus the ambient placement.
So Rene, in his usual overachiever mode, wrote 10,000 words and a podcast and multiple videos. So you really have. Is this the setup video in here? This is the unboxing.
If you go halfway through, it'll start the setup.
Yeah. Yeah. See, that's the look that I like with the slate wall behind you. I like that.
That's what I'm going to have for the pod. I actually have an adapter to make that camera work with.
Perfect. It's beautiful. So there's that little trifold again.
Yeah.
But it's nice. That's all you need. So would you use this instead of your stereo? I mean, is it that much better?
Well, one thing I was going to point out too is it makes this little tone when you first start setting it up that is the same thing as the pattern on an Apple Watch or iPhone when you set it up, or the code you type in for an Apple TV. So it just knows that it's pairing to that device, and you don't have to do anything else about it.
You also place it. It's asking where are you putting it in the house.
If you have HomeKit set up, it'll ask you what room you're putting it in. And that way, if you say turn off the lights, it knows you mean the lights in that room. And you can say turn off all the lights if you really want all the lights, but it's aware of which HomeKit room it's in, for example.
Because, of course, Apple wants you to have one for every room.
Well, it's also useful for security. So, for example, you can say, I want to let anybody AirPlay to it. I want to only let people who are on my network, which means you've shared your Wi-Fi password with them and you trust them, or I only want to share it with people who I've shared my HomeKit home with, which is generally only your family. And that prevents like Jim Dalrymple driving up and streaming Ozzy Osbourne to you in the middle of the night.
Which he would. If he could, he would. He
totally would. It just he wouldn't come back to Canada to do it. But he totally would.
Hi, Rene. That's cute.
Well, yeah, and it says, it says like you can't tell, but I'm smiling. It does all these little sort of. It's very human. I mean, like that's the one thing that I think Siri and Amazon get really right, in that they make it almost like a character that you want to talk with. And I get that Google is like it's the Star Trek computer, but I find when it's a character, when I find that a character is just more relatable. And someone was asking me, like, they find it very uncomfortable to talk to it. But I think if you think about it like Gem and Synergy, or Michael Knight and Kit, once it has a personality, it becomes more approachable to you.